Okay, this is going to be me reading off the police report from the Olmos Park incident. On March 27, 2018, Corporal Lopez, badge number 352, was dispatched to the 4300 block of McCullough. Dispatch advised that they received the call of a man with a gun. Dispatch advised that the man holding an AK-47 around his neck. Moments later, dispatch advised that the man was standing in front of Tribeca at 4331 McCullough, located in the intersection of Earl Street and McCullough. Now, they say that this was the only one, but there's actually audio we have that we can't release right now where multiple people called in. This was actually the report sent by a police officer who was standing across the street from me about 50 feet away, which is funny. A police officer can't identify the difference between, the weapon I was carrying in an AK-47, which look almost nothing alike. But there is multiple people called in, and even in dispatch themselves, when talking back and forth on the radio, said, "Oh, it's those, Second Amendment activist guys." Oh, okay. And they said this before the police showed up, and the police knew we were activists. They knew we weren't trying to do anything. They knew exactly who we were. So when they showed up, they were well aware that we weren't a threat to anyone. They were just there trying to react. Okay, I advised dispatch I would be out with the man with the gun who was wearing gray shorts and a brown sweater. I had observed the man had a black rifle slung across his chest at the low ready. He says this even though my hands were never on the firearm. I also observed the male had a handgun on his right hip. This male subject was later identified as James J. Everard. I loudly ordered the male to lay down on the ground several times. The male subject refused to obey my commands, therefore resisting all orders given to him. Officer Vieira, badge number 329, arrived on location, arriving from the south end of the 4300 block of McCullough to assist the officer. Now, notice in here, they don't give any reason for why they demanded me on the ground other than the fact that I had a gun. Now, they're trying to say it was at the low ready, but they're saying it's strapped across my chest. I'm not exactly sure, but how they can say it's at the low ready when the first thing in the video you can see he asks is, "What's in your hand?" So how can he claim that it was at the low ready when I actually had a camera in my hand? That would be physically impossible. Okay, while ordering the male subject to lay on the ground, multiple males exit a white Dodge van displaying Texas license plate blank, I'm not going to say. I was ordered to identify the male subject as B. Ferguson Todd. From prior police interactions, Ferguson began screaming at me. Ferguson stated that they were going to disarm me. While continuing to order male subject with the rifle to lay on the ground, he refused all commands, it's my fault, given to him by myself and Officer Vieira. Dispatch was advised to have additional officers unit make way to our location due to the fact that there were several subjects, both male and female, surrounding all police units armed with weapons. Now, this is a funny one because in the if you actually get to hear their conversation on the radio, they're saying that there was vans full of up to 20 people, all armed with AK-47s. That's what they told San Antonio PD. While attempting to stop all traffic and pedestrians from entering the area, which they failed at, one male subject wearing a bright neon green t-shirt approached me from the rear, which he didn't, armed with a weapon. Approached me from the rear with a weapon and continued to walk past me towards the male with a gun. Now, remember this. He's saying that he was armed with a weapon. This male subject interfered as I interacted with the male holding the rifle. The male came between Officer R. Valenciano and Officer Vieira. Officer Vieira repeatedly ordered the male with the green neon shirt to step away from the other suspect. That male refused to allow or follow commands. Officer Vieira asked the male if he was armed with a weapon, and the male stated he wasn't. It was later confirmed he was armed with a handgun which was concealed, and all subjects refused to identify himself. Now, he's saying that he was concealed. But notice that in his statement just before, he says there was an armed man that came from behind me. Well, how does he know that he was armed when he was walking past him in his previous statement, but then he's saying he was concealed and he didn't know till later that he was armed? The reason is, if you look at the video, he was obviously open carrying in the whole time that they knew. I observed Officer Vieira and Chief of Police R. Valenciano approach James Everard, who was armed with a black rifle. Everard was standing on the sidewalk obstructing a passageway, which is, again, funny because multiple people had walked past me while I was standing on the sidewalk, so I wasn't obstructing it. Everard was also holding an assault-style rifle in a manner calculated to cause alarm, which in the state of Texas requires that I actually hold the rifle in my hands and use it in a way to directly threaten people, which it was never in my hands. In fact, the whole time I had a video camera in my right hand, which would make it impossible for me to actually fire the rifle, so I couldn't directly threaten anyone. Dispatch received several 911 calls regarding Everard's actions. Everard was approached by Officer R. Valenciano and ordered to identify himself and lay down on the ground. Everard responded by saying that was not going to happen, and that if he wanted to, he would have to come and get the weapon from him, therefore interfering with the duties of a public servant. Once again, if you watch the video, you'll notice that I've never said that. So, again, lying. As they approached Everard, I moved closer to provide security while they attempted to detain him. As all officers converged towards Everard, the male wearing the bright green t-shirt attempted to stop Officer Vieira from detaining the male subject holding the rifle. Once again, they're trying to say that CJ, the guy in the bright green t-shirt, was between me and the Chief of Police. The Chief of Police was on my right, CJ was on my left. He never physically was in between us. And at no point did he ever try to stop the Chief of Police from coming towards me because he was never in between us. The Officer Vieira was in front of me and came towards CJ to grab him. So at no point did this ever happen. Sergeant Luis assisted Officer Vieira in detaining the male subject at the time that the male wearing the green shirt and the red cap, later identified as Christopher John Grisham, got too close to the officer. Grisham was standing on the sidewalk and then on the roadway obstructing the passageway, which, once again, the only reason he was in the roadway is because the cops pushed him to the roadway. He continued to ask questions. Officer Vieira gave Grisham very loud verbal commands to step away. Grisham refused, and at this time, Officer Vieira attempted to detain Grisham, but he pulled away, resisting the officer's command. Grisham pushed the Officer Vieira's hand away, striking the Officer Vieira in his left forearm, causing pain. Grisham was immediately tased by Vinciano. Grisham immediately crumpled to the ground in a prone position on his back, striking the back of his head on the asphalt, and was handcuffed and searched for weapons. Officer Vieira disarmed Grisham, which he didn't go to the, it's interesting that he says that he assaulted him. He had his hands in the air, and the officer tried to grab him as he was backing away, and without any warning or anything, Chief came up and tased him from a few feet away. So, once again, just a whole lot of BS. Sergeant Louise immediately handcuffed the male with the rifle. The male was also armed with a handgun, which was loaded and which appears to have armor-piercing ammunition. This ammunition will be further investigated. This male was also wearing body armor. It appears by the behavior that Grisham, with the leader of this group, and commanding and ordering everyone involved. Dispatch was advised to EMS arrive on location and to stand until there was until it was secured. EMS was dispatched due to the male subject being tased and having possible injury to his head. Then when Grisham was tased, he dropped his camera, which he was holding. Grisham refused to walk on his own power into patrol unit and was secured in Unit 905. All officers in attempting to secure the area, several other subjects arrived in location, attempting to approach officers from all sides. As we secured the area... Sorry about me reading that off. It's a little weird, but I was reading from a PDF of a copy of a copy, so some of the words were kind of half there. But you got the gist of it. That was basically the police trying to cover their butts. After we got arrested, they held us in their temporary holding for a little over 8 hours, just so they could kind of sit around and figure out exactly what can we get these guys on. And they didn't tell us what we're being arrested for. We asked multiple times, hey, can I at least know the charges? And when I first got there, they told me, hey, yeah, I'll try to figure it out and I'll let you know. Then nothing. We knocked on the door, we asked, nothing at all. The real funny part, though, is after we got there, they put me in a little 5 by maybe 10 holding cell, a little bench, little prison toilet kind of deal. And then after I was there for about 2 hours, the chief came in with one of the other officers, tasers out, pointing straight at my chest, little laser, screaming at me, knees to the bench, which I'd never been in jail before, so I had no clue what that meant. I really did not know what that meant. So I kind of asked, what does that mean? So like, turn around and put your knees on the bench. So I put my knees on the bench, and he called me retarded because I didn't know what that meant. I'm like, not everyone goes to jail? So I did it, and he was like, higher up on the bench, get on the bench. So I got on the bench, and they leg shackled me because for some reason, with a 1-inch thick metal or steel plate door in a 5 by 8 room, I needed to be in leg shackles. Don't know why. A little bit later, CJ showed up, and of course his head was still bleeding. They liquid stitched it, and his back was bleeding before they pulled the barbs out. So I kind of prison nursed him. He's kind of a prison wife in there. And I took care of him for the rest of the time, got the bleeding to stop. Luckily, they had some nice toilet paper. Thank you, Olmos Park, for that one. And, the whole time we're knocking on the door trying to get stuff. And when it actually came time for them to bring us to the night magistrate, they came, tasers out, opened the door, knees to the bench, and they brought us out. I kid you not, it was like Hannibal Lecter. They had 2 officers. They had me walk backwards, leg cuffs and handcuffs. They turned me around, put handcuffs on me, tasers on me. I went out to their little room. They had 4 more officers with tasers pointing at me, an officer with an AR at the ready. I crap you not, it's like I was some kind of serial killer. And they yelled at me real loud, you sign the paper, you don't sign the paper, anything else will be met with equal force. I'm like, whoa. Okay, well, I'm just going to sit there like, what paper am I signing? They're like, it's a property receipt. Can I look at it first? And they just kind of shook their heads like, what? Yep. Oh, yeah, you can look at it. So I looked at it and had all my stuff on there. So I signed it. They brought me out to the car. Did the same thing with CJ, but for his, I guess they messed it up. So they never actually had him sign his actual property receipt. But I mean, if you look at the video, I mean, or listen to the police report, you can tell that they didn't have any reason to stop us. They saw a guy with a gun. They knew I was carrying it legally. They're trying to say I was carrying it in a manner to calculate alarm. And law, I mean, the law says that there's no definition of it, but there's been a few people who've been arrested for it, but there's been no case on it yet. So everyone pretty much breaks down to that you have to carry the weapon to the point where you're pointing it at people, or you're holding the weapon while threatening people, or you actually have to like purposely go out and have the weapon and use it directly to scare people. That's what it breaks down to. So just carrying a weapon isn't illegal itself, nor does it warrant having a stop. You have to carry the weapon. And if, like I said, you listen to where they say, hey, he was holding the weapon at the ready, but the very first thing he asked me, what's in your hand? Well, how can I be holding a weapon? And if you got a weapon at the ready, you got your one hand on the foregrip, the other hand on the weapon like this. Well, how can I do that if I have a cigarette in one hand and my camera like that? I can't be holding a weapon at the ready. And you can tell in the video, if I have a camera in my hand, it's physically impossible. So, the officer is absolutely full of crap. They're just making things up. And even then, if that was the initial reason for the stop, they would have charged me with carrying a weapon in a manner to calculate alarm. But they got me for, it was resisting arrest, which you can tell in the video I didn't resist arrest. They got me for obstructing a roadway, but you can see in some of the videos that people walked right past us. They got me for impeding a police officer's duties, but if you look at the actual law, it is legal to verbally resist a police officer's duties, and you actually have to physically resist a police officer to impede their duties. That doesn't mean not complying with orders. That means you have to physically resist them, which means if they try to do something, you have to get in their way, or you have to do something where it actually physically stops them from doing what they're doing. Not complying with the orders doesn't cover underneath that. That's why if they tell you to do something, you don't do it. Now, if they were to come up and try to arrest someone and you get in their way, you're physically impeding. If they tell you to get on the ground and you don't, that's not physically impeding. That's just not doing what they tell you. So that didn't work out. Then it got me for disorderly conduct, which is kind of a broad one, but I didn't technically do anything that's disorderly conduct because they started the situation, not me. I was just verbally resisting, which once again is legal in the state of Texas. So now, I know this is going to turn out to be a long video, so a lot of people kind of want to know details. This is going to be the phone call that the chief and CJ had. So this is kind of proof that this happened the day before the arrest. So the chief knew that we were going to come. He also knew the law and his ignorance of wanting to obey the law. So if the chief of police knows the law, and there's only a department of, I think it's 14 officers, including the chief, he should be able to tell his officers, hey, here's the law, here's what you can and can't do. He is the absolute officer there, and he needs to be able to tell his officers what they can and can't do. So if he got that phone call and he didn't inform his officers, and we went out there like 5 o'clock at night, so there's no reason he didn't have the time to tell his officers what was going on and what they can and can't do. So there's no excuse for what happened. So go ahead and watch this video of CJ talking to the chief of police.
Olmos Park Police Department, this is Renee. May I help you?
Hi, it's just Chief.
It is?
Hey, Chief, how are you doing? It's CJ Grisham. I'm with Open Carry, Texas.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I've been trying to get a hold of you guys. I sent an open records request, and I haven't heard from anybody.
Okay.
Did you get that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I mean, is there because we're almost up on the 10 days.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I mean, are y'all looking into that, or what's going on with that?
Absolutely, sir. We are looking into it, sir.
Okay. So with that said as well, I'm trying to find out also what were the issues with this open carry stuff and why we've got members that are being drawn down on. Is that policy?
Well, let me see how I can answer that too. That's going to satisfy your answer. So I can't get into the specifics with regards to certain individuals that we have criminal cases pending or we have offenses that are pending. I'm well aware that Texas is an open carry state. I'm well aware of that. So
okay.
Outside of that parameters, was there another question that you needed answered?
Well, yeah. I don't need specific. I'm not asking for specific cases. My main question is if a person is open carrying, is it policy to pull out a firearm? Is it policy for your officers to threaten individuals with their firearms? I guess is my question. Is that the policy, or how do you guys deal with open carriers? What's the policy?
Well, again, Texas is an open carry state, so we're well aware of the fact that it's legally, it is legal for a person to carry a handgun on their person, provided that they have a license and they're not committing any criminal activity. We are aware that is legal.
That's so Chief. That's not my question.
Okay.
You're skirting my question. Is it policy?
I'm not skirting your question. I'm answering your question.
No, you didn't answer it at all. I specifically asked, is it your policy to respond to open carry by your officers pulling their handguns and threatening a citizen? That's my
no.
That's
obviously, yeah. Obviously, that's not anyone's policy to do that, including ours.
So then, as the chief, are you addressing the fact that some of your officers did that?
Well, I address issues that need to be addressed. If there's not an issue that needs to be addressed, then obviously I'm not going to address that issue.
Do you consider that to be an issue that you need to address?
I don't think it's an issue that I need to address. Again, you get one side. You get one side of the story. You don't know the whole side of the story.
I know the whole side of the story. I've seen unedited video. I've seen the entire thing.
That's your prerogative, and that's your opinion. And
so you don't. Just to clarify. Just to clarify, you don't think there's an issue with your officers unholstering their handguns and threatening a citizen who is doing nothing but having a holstered handgun, and that's it?
Once again, I'll say it again. I am not talking about a specific incident with regard.
I'm not either. I'm talking about general policy.
I'm telling you, general policy. Texas is an open carry state. Provided that you have a license to carry a handgun and you're not committing any criminal activity, you don't have anything to worry about.
Well, apparently we do. That's my concern. That's why we're getting involved. Because
that's your opinion, and you're entitled to your opinion, sir.
Well, I find it very disconcerting that the chief doesn't care that his officers are literally unholstering their handguns without a perceived threat. I mean, that boggles my mind that you don't think that's a problem.
Okay, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, and again, you're entitled to your opinion. I respect your opinion. Everybody has an opinion.
Okay, so if I come to Olmos Park and I'm open carrying a handgun or a rifle, am I going to be shot dead?
I'm not even going to entertain that question, sir. That's not even a reasonable question.
It is a reasonable question. If your officers are pulling guns on people who are open carrying, that's a very reasonable question. Am I going to be forced on my face if I open carry there at gunpoint?
I'm not even going to respond to that question, sir. That's a very unreasonable question to ask.
Well, in light of what's actually happening, Chief, it's not unreasonable at all. I mean, I do plan to come there, and I'm afraid that you guys are going to threaten me and put me on my face at gunpoint for doing nothing more than exercising my rights. And you just said it's lawful in Texas. So why are officers unholstering guns when people do it? Do you unholster guns when people eat an ice cream cone? That's legal.
Well, let me give you an example, if you permit me here, unrelated to a handgun.
Sure.
Drinking alcohol in Texas is legal, would you say, provided that you meet the age requirement?
That's correct.
Right?
That's correct.
We're in agreement there.
Absolutely.
And we're in agreement that if you reach a certain level of intoxication and you're driving a motor vehicle in Texas, that would be illegal, correct?
That's illegal.
Okay. Same principle here. Again, that's why I told you. We're aware of the open carry in Texas, and we're aware that it's legal, provided that you have a license to carry a handgun and you're not committing any other criminal activity. You don't have a problem. We have San Antonio is a population of over 1 million point something people in San Antonio, and we don't have a problem with the majority of the people that come through with an open carry or concealed carry with a rifle or a shotgun. We just don't have that problem.
Well, I guess I disagree because I wouldn't be calling you if there wasn't one. But let me go back to your drinking analogy. If someone is sitting at the Olive Garden just drinking a beer and no signs of intoxication, are you going to arrest them?
Well, obviously, I mean, if there's nothing going on there for us to address, then no. Well, why on earth would we do that? I mean, there's many places here in
but it's legal, right?
In Olmos Park. Yeah, it's legal to consume alcohol, yes.
Okay.
That's why I came out and I said it first.
And it's legal to open carry as well, but yet for open carry, you guys are showing up in force, and for drinking, you're not. So I'm trying to figure out why one legal activity is kind of
never said that we're not showing up for the people. I'll give you an example. Provided, I mean, we know that it's legal, but there's always restrictions and parameters on anything. Would you agree?
Well, yeah. So what are the parameters that were violated? I get what parameters would I have to violate in order to have police pull up on me with their guns unholstered?
No, that's not nothing to do with that. I'm simply saying you're talking about open carry in Texas. There's certain places that you cannot open carry. Would you agree with that?
Okay, I'm
certain places that you can go to with open carry.
Okay,
Texas,
I'm talking about lawful. I'm not talking about going into school zones I'm talking about me just walking down the road, minding my own business, not going through school zones, not in a bar, not where I'm not allowed to be. I'm talking about just plain old exercising my rights peacefully, smiling, waving at people, holding a sign maybe.
I've already answered that question. Texas is an open carry state. You can legally carry a handgun in Texas, provided You have a handgun license to do so, and you're not committing any criminal activity.
Okay. So is it your policy to stop people to check their licenses?
That just depends on the circumstances that surround that. It's hard for me to tell you in a hypothetical situation.
No, it's not a hypothetical.
In general, does this happen? Yes, it is a hypothetical.
No.
There's plenty of variables in between there that you may be unaware of.
Okay. I can't believe I have to dumb this down this way. I'm talking generally nothing else. There's no other variables but a person open carrying. Is it your policy to stop and identify that person and check their license? There doesn't have to be a
Yeah, you're asking me a hypothetical situation.
Oh my gosh, Chief, come on, don't play the politics game.
I'm not playing the politics game. You asked me a question. I've addressed your issue.
It's not a hypothetical. It's not a hypothetical at all. People open carry every day. When people are open carrying, absent any other articulable suspicion, probable cause, just open carrying. This isn't a hypothetical. I'm not saying, okay, a person's open carrying and he happens to have the gun in his hand. No. He's got a holstered handgun in accordance with state law in a belt or shoulder holster, absent anything else. Is it your policy to stop and identify those individuals?
No. Obviously, no. We have encountered many people with open carry.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. Well, I'm still a little flabbergasted that you don't think it's necessary to investigate pulling guns on people for open carrying.